When Sandra and I had been together for 7 years, a close male friend suddenly appeared in her life. They talked about everything and shared an effortless connection. Every night, Sandra would make 2 desserts by hand, one for me and one to take to him. But there was never anything inappropriate between them until one day. He asked her, "If I had met you first, would you have married me?" Sandra didn't answer. Instead, she smashed the vase I had given her. All day today, she seemed absent-minded. She started to speak several times, but held back each time. Eventually, I spoke first. "Did something happen?" Sandra frowned slightly and replied cautiously, "Lily's husband is on a business trip. She's home alone and scared. She wants me to stay with her tonight. But your arm is seriously injured, and I'm worried about leaving you alone." "Maybe I should tell her to ask another friend." She sounded sincere, her voice laced with concern, half worried, half caring. As she spoke, I kept looking at her. Her eyes were clear and pure. She met my gaze directly, without hesitation or guilt. After a brief silence, she softly asked, "What's wrong?" I shook my head. "Nothing. You can go." "What about you alone?" "I'll ask my mom too. Come over and take care of me. I'd recently been in a minor car accident and broken my arm." Sandra had been terrified. She cried outside the operating room while I was in surgery. Whether in the hospital or at home, she cared for me meticulously, refusing to leave my side for even a moment. At night, when the pain kept me from sleeping, she stayed awake too, sometimes crying at the bedside, sometimes gently rubbing my hand with her cheek, or wiping the sweat from my forehead with a towel. I saw it all. I worried she'd wear herself out and get sick, so I told her to rest. She only replied, "How can I sleep when you're like this? What if something happens and I don't find out in time? I'd have nightmares."
Hi.
"Your hand is for designing houses. If anything happened, I'd regret it for the rest of my life." Then she pouted and asked, "Don't you want me to stay with you?" Even when she had to leave for work during the day, she made sure my mom arrived first. She'd explain everything in detail, repeating things again and again. My mom would laugh and say, "He's my own son. How could I neglect him?" But today, she hesitated only for 2 seconds before nodding. "Take care of yourself. I'll be back as soon as possible. If anything happens, call me first. Don't make me worry." She left in a hurry, just taking a change of clothes. Stayed seated, didn't move. When she looked back, I even smiled and waved. When the door finally closed, I still didn't move. But the tension in my back eased slightly. Sandra was acting strange. From beginning to end, something about her felt off, but I didn't say a word. I didn't ask a single question, because I already knew where she was going, who she was going to meet. At first, I didn't even know the man's name, just that his last name was Ito, and Sandra called him Manager Ito. The first time I saw him was a year ago. I was waiting for Sandra at a newly opened cafe downstairs from her company. I hadn't told her in advance, planning to surprise her around lunchtime, but then she suddenly walked in. The receptionist, who had been lounging around, instantly straightened up. Sandra gave the man behind the counter a bright smile. He nodded, back smiling as well. It was a silent understanding between them. I've always believed that kind of unspoken. Understanding between a man and a woman is dangerous. It makes people believe they're meant to be. Back then, the strange feeling flickered through my mind, but I brushed it aside. Later, Sandra saw me and looked surprised. "Why are you here?" "I came to have lunch with you," I said. "Why?" "Didn't you call me? I didn't want to interrupt your work. Why did you come down?" She pouted slightly. "Work stuff, kind of annoying. I came down to walk a bit and grab a coffee. Oh, the cookies here are delicious. Should try." Then she raised her hand and called out, "Manager Ito, another plate of cookies." He looked puzzled for a moment. Then Sandra turned to him with a smile and said, "My husband." That day, they were both calm. Sandra introduced him calmly. Ito greeted me with the same calm, even waved our bill. Sandra told me the coffee here was authentic. After she tried it once and liked it, her company began ordering their afternoon tea from the same place. Over time, she and Manager Ito became familiar. At the time, I truly believed they were nothing more than a shopkeeper and his regular customer. But now, I'm not so sure. I didn't know those delicious cookies weren't actually sold in the cafe, and I didn't know that Makoto had once messaged Sandra asking her, "If I had met you first, would you have married me?" That night at 10 o'clock, Sandra sent me a message. She said she'd just had hot pot with Lily and was about to go to bed. She told me she was exhausted and wouldn't be able to video call. She asked me to take care of myself and to call her if anything happened. I replied, told her not to worry, that I was fine. The next day, I casually asked the cafe server, "Where's manager Ito? Why isn't he here today?" The young girl smiled, not thinking much of it. "He went out. Left right after he came downstairs. Today's our boss's birthday? He must be out on a date with his girlfriend. He was holding a huge bouquet of roses. So romantic." I nodded, took a coffee to go, and left. This city is enormous. Finding two people in it is nearly impossible. Sandra once bought me a smartwatch. Before she left, I quietly slipped it into her handbag. She gave it to me last year. When couples were tying colored rubber bands on each other's wrists, Sandra gave me a smartwatch instead. "This way I can always know where you are," she'd said playfully. "I want to check on you. Will you let me?" Of course. She cared more about the health tracking than the location. I had once fainted from overwork, and it had scared her to death. She wanted to monitor my condition in real time. Naturally, I accepted. It was a top-of-line model, able to track heart rate, pulse, even precise location. Just like now, it had been stationary on the 12th floor of this hotel for 3 hours. But I didn't rush there immediately. My arm was still aching, so I took a painkiller and a melatonin. I lay down on the soft bed, white noise playing softly in the background. Even so, I couldn't sleep. Just like that night over a month ago, the first time I checked Sandra's phone, she'd been acting strangely. She cut her hand while peeling an apple for me, spilled a glass of water while pouring it. Then, as if something snapped inside her, she swept everything off the table, including the custom vase I'd had made for our anniversary. I said nothing, just stared at the mess in silence. Sandra slowly calmed down. Looking at the broken vase, regret flickered in her eyes. She turned to me as if wanting to explain, but in the end, she said nothing, quietly began to clean up. Later that night, I woke up and found her missing. The dim living room light was still on. Sandra had drunk several glasses of wine. She was slumped on the sofa, long hair spilling over the edge, tears staining the cushion beneath her. My heart felt heavy, unbearably slow. With trembling fingers and a dying heart, I unlocked her phone. The chat window was still open. Message from someone named Only Ito stared back at me. "If I'd met you first, would you have married me?" Sandra never replied. Not a single word. But that night, my heart died inside her phone. I arrived at the hotel at 6 in the morning with my ID. I placed all my belongings on the front desk. "Sandra is my wife," I told the receptionist. "I need to know which room she booked. If you refuse, I'll call the police." I didn't have the strength to argue. I was drained physically, emotionally, completely hollowed out. The receptionist stared at me for a long time. Her expression shifted from surprise to hesitation, then finally to pity. "Please wait a moment. I'll check right away." She gave me the room number and gently asked if I needed assistance. I smiled faintly and shook my head. I gathered my things and went upstairs. Sandra didn't keep me waiting long. I had been standing outside the door for less than 40 minutes. When it opened, Makoto stood there, hands still on the doorknob, looking hollow and defeated. Behind him, a slender hand rested gently on his arm. And then I heard her voice. "Makoto, thank you. But I'm sorry, we really can't do this." "Thank you. Thank you for what?" Sorry. For what?" Their words were few, but they echoed like a secret code between the two of them. A look of sadness appeared on Makoto's face. "Sandra." Alex, the air seemed to freeze in that moment. Sandra's hand, which had been resting on Makoto's arm, retracted as if burned. But she didn't step out from behind him. Asked, "Are you not leaving, Alex? Sandra's face had gone pale, Her voice trembled. So did mine. The hand hidden behind my back was shaking uncontrollably. I thought I was prepared for this. Thought I could handle it calmly. But when the moment actually came, I realized Di could barely even stand. It felt like all my strength vanished. At once, weakly, I asked, "Where's the car?" "In the underground parking lot," she answered. "Let's go." My arm, still in a sling, accidentally hit the wall. The jolt of pain made me gasp. "Alex." Sandra rushed to support me. I growled, "Don't touch me." But she kept her head down, refusing to move away.
Ow.
Ignoring my tone, ignoring my warning. I raised my hand, intending to push her off.
Yes.
But suddenly, Makoto stepped forward and pulled Sandra behind him. "What are you going to do?" he asked, guarded. I sneered. "Do what?" "What do you think hit her?" He stood tall, like a self-righteous protector, shielding her. "I won't let you touch her," he said. I nodded coldly. "Fine then, keep her. Just remind her to divorce me first." Sandra immediately shook off Makoto's hand and shouted, "Alex! Let's go home!" Psst, visibly hurt, said. "I was just trying to help you." Sandra took a step back. "Makoto, I have nothing to do with you. I don't need your help." She didn't even glance his way again. She looked straight at me, her voice shaking. "Alex, let's go home. I can explain yesterday was Makoto's birthday. He doesn't have friends here. He just asked me to keep him company. That's all it was. I just spent his birthday with him. Nothing happened between us. I was wrong to lie to you, and I'm sorry. I was afraid you'd be angry. Afraid you'd overthink it. I know I messed up. If it bothers you, I won't see him again. He's just a friend. Alex, please don't ignore me. Say something, please. Don't scare me." Since we got home, Sandra has said a lot of explanations, apologies, self-blame. I wanted to say something, but my throat felt stuffed with cotton. I couldn't get a word out. I didn't even know where to start. Finally, I forced the words out slowly, clearly. "Sandra, let's get a divorce." She trembled violently. Her hands clenched the hem of her shirt. She closed her eyes tightly, and when she opened them again, her emotions were clearly restrained. "Nothing happened between us," she whispered. "We just drank and talked. Alex, don't do this, please. I know you're angry. I was wrong. Shouldn't have gone out with him, but please believe me, I didn't do anything to betray you." "Betray me?" I said it calmly, too calmly. "You probably hugged, right? Maybe kissed? You smell like smoke." And here I pointed to her lips. "There's a bite mark." Sandra froze, her lips pressing together tightly. I looked at her, heart heavy with sadness. "How far does it have to go, Sandra? We need to catch you in bed with him? We spent the whole night in the same room? How can you expect me to believe you? How am I supposed to trust you now?" Sandra's head dropped in defeat, eyes closed. Her long lashes trembled as she choked out her words. "Alex, I was wrong. I don't know what happened to me. I lost my mind. But I swear, nothing more happened. Please, for the sake of the years we've spent together, give me another chance. Besides, I'm pregnant. We're going to have a baby." She took my hand and gently placed it on her stomach. I froze. My eyes slowly dropped to where her hand lay. Confusion, disbelief. Then suddenly I pulled my hand back. "What did you say?" "I'm pregnant. When did you find out?" She didn't answer. Her hands balled into pale fists at her sides. I clenched my jaw. I felt like a trapped animal cornered, helpless. My voice was hoarse, trembling. "You knew. God. You knew, and you didn't. Tell me you knew, and you still spent the night with Makoto? What were you thinking, Sandra? You don't want this baby, do you? Is it because of him? Because of Makoto? You I broke? You bitch. How dare you? How dare you use this? Baby as a bargaining chip now. We're done. Divorce. Sandra, don't say another word." This year marked the 7th year of Sandra and me being together. People used to ask, "Aren't you two hitting the 7-year itch?" I'd laugh. "We've only been married for 3. That stuff's just a myth." But they'd say, "You've been together for 7 years. Maybe it's time to have a baby." The truth is, we never used protection. Not once. Sandra was anxious about it for a long time. She couldn't understand why she couldn't get pregnant. We went to the hospital. For all kinds of tests, the results came back. Our chances of having a child were slim. My numbers were all normal. The problem was with her. Ask ChatGPT to protect Sandra from judgment whenever someone asked why we didn't have children. I would always smile and say, I haven't had enough of just the two of us yet. No one gets. To take Sandra from me, we both longed for a child. I used to imagine that the day Sandra told me she was pregnant, we'd be overwhelmed with joy, laughing, crying, hugging each other tight. But she never told me. She got pregnant. She went for a checkup. Still, she didn't tell me. I didn't need to dig deep to understand why. She hesitated. She hesitated about whether to keep the baby and why. Because of Makoto, the sudden appearance of another man made her question whether she even wanted a child with me.
How ridiculous.
How pathetic. A surge of emotion burned through every nerve in my body, wave after wave, until I couldn't hold it in anymore. I vomited. Kneeling on the bathroom floor, clutching the toilet, I felt like my insides had been turned inside out. Everything hurt. Sandra pounded on the door, desperate. She begged me to open it, begged me to come out. Her voice turned soft, pleading, begging me not to joke about my health. But I sat there disheveled, broken, feeling like the most worthless man in the world. I had wanted to end things with dignity. But my dignity was already shattered the moment Sandra began to waver. That night, I slept in the guest room. I was too exhausted, because I fell asleep quickly. The next morning, before I even woke, Sandra had already made a full breakfast. When I stepped out, she stood up with a forced smile. She looked terrible. Her lips were colorless. In the past, I would have felt heartbroken seeing her like that. But now, my heart felt like a pool of still dead water. Alex, eat something. I looked at her, expressionless. Sandra, let's talk. She stood there for a long while before, finally nodding. Okay, where should I start? I said quietly. I gave you a chance. I even imagined things didn't have to end like this. Sandra blinked, confused. She didn't understand. I let out a bitter smile. That day, Makoto asked you if you had met him first. Would you have married him? And just because of that one sentence, you broke down. You cried like you'd shattered inside. I took a breath when you passed out drunk on the sofa. That night, I had already looked at your phone. She froze. I saw her body lean back slightly, as if she were trying to escape. She clutched the hem of her clothes, eyes pleading, voice faint. But I didn't reply to him. I rubbed my tired eyes. No, you didn't. But sometimes, not replying is still an answer. A suffocating silence filled the room. Sandra opened her mouth, then closed it. She tried again, still nothing. Finally, she spoke. If you saw those messages, then you should know I never crossed any line with him. I treated him like a friend. The night before last, I drank too much.
No.
I lost control of my emotions. But it ended there. Didn't go any further. Alex, I swear I didn't betray you. I didn't look at her. Just let out a long, weary breath. On April 3rd, we were supposed to go to the movies. It had been a long time since our last date. I bought tickets, made a reservation, was genuinely excited, but you said you couldn't go. You told me your boss needed you to work overtime, but the truth, Makoto invited you out to sing karaoke. I looked at her, my voice quiet but sharp. Every night. You made 2 desserts, one for me, one to take to him in the morning, except for one day. February 14th. You brought him matcha chocolates. 13 pieces. I swallowed hard. The elevator in your office building requires an access card. Makoto complained about how long it took to wait downstairs. So you told your boss that your husband needed a card? But you gave it to him. On your birthday, after I fell asleep, you snuck out at midnight. He gave you a bracelet. He asked if he was the first to say happy birthday, and you said yes. I paused, then added bitterly, your silent understanding is seamless. He says go. You say go. You mention a penthouse, he replies. 1? You say, I'm sleepy, he replies. Coffee's on the way. My voice cracked a little. When you got a new car? You took him for the test drive. He joked that someone mistook you for a couple, replied with a shy facepalm emoji. I looked at her, tired and heartbroken. Every day on your way home from work, you chat with him for 27 minutes. Tell me, Sandra, how long has it been since we talked that much in a single day? Except maybe during our honeymoon phase. I laughed bitterly. The Sandra who chats with Makoto. She's a stranger to me. No, I shouldn't say stranger. The Sandra from university was like that, lively, talkative, even a bit childish. But the person on the other side of those messages wasn't me anymore. That sensation, like ants crawling beneath my skin, nearly devoured me. Sandra lowered her head further and further. Her voice was faint. I just saw him as a confidant. When I felt down, I needed someone to talk to. You were just chatting. Alex, what will it take for you to believe me? A deep, helpless exhaustion weighed me down. Sandra, how far does it have to go before it's considered cheating? Your closeness? Your understanding with him? Feels like a guillotine hanging above my neck. Is it cheating only when the blade falls or when you choose to hang it there? The bullet had already been loaded long before the trigger was pulled. I had once entertained fantasies. I loved Sandra. We had been together for 7 years. I remembered every single thing she had done for me. How could someone like her betray me? For a man like that? But when I turned off my phone and lay in bed, I knew. Some things couldn't be ignored. After reading those messages, after uncovering everything, how could I possibly still trust you? When you're not with me and something feels off, I know you're going to see him. In that moment, I knew. Our relationship had already been buried. Then Sandra agreed to see Makoto one last time. One final drink, he messaged. Maybe this way, I can finally let go. Sandra, please, pity me. And she replied, okay. That was when the trigger was pulled. I was reborn. Through death, Sandra, let's get a divorce. She refused. She said she'd do anything but that. She promised she'd only make desserts for me, have lunch downstairs at my company, come home on time every day, never step into that cafe again. Watching her frantically trying to please me made my heart ache. It was all pointless now. I never cared for compensation after the damage was done. Divorce is hard. I didn't realize how difficult it could be until I wanted one. When one person disagrees, you have to go through the courts. From the moment you file to the first trial, it takes at least a month. And if there's no clear fault, the court won't approve it the first time. Then you wait 6 more months and file again. Will they approve it the second time? Maybe, maybe not. It's torture. So I decided to move out. What are you doing? Where are you going? I ignored her. Just kept packing my clothes into the suitcase. She broke down, started throwing my things around the room. What more do you want from me? I've already admitted my mistakes, apologized, promised it won't happen again. Why can't you forgive me? Am I really that unforgivable? Alex, I'm begging you. Can't we go back to how we were? The clothes in my hand crumpled under my tightening grip. I hurled them to the floor. Sandra, I'm begging you to. Stop making me feel disgusted. She froze, stepping back with tear-filled eyes. She clutched her stomach and leaned against the doorframe. I won't divorce you. I'm pregnant. You can't divorce me. That was the last thing she said, before she collapsed. The diagnosis was a threatened miscarriage. If her condition worsened, she might lose the baby. The doctor said it was triggered by emotional stress and anxiety. Parents rushed to the hospital. They scolded me, furious and bitter. They demanded to know what I was doing. Accused me of hurting Sandra, of causing her breakdown. I was too drained, too numb to respond. Sandra looked anxiously between us and murmured, Dad, Mom, stop Alex. Slowly lifted my head and looked at the 3 of them standing there like a picture-perfect family I no longer belonged to. I want a divorce from Sandra. What did you say? I said. I want a divorce, you bastard. Her father exploded, lunging forward and swinging a punch at my face. I caught his arm, held it tightly. Sandra cried out, trying to stop him, but her mother restrained her. You've spoiled him too much. You're pregnant, and he still wants a divorce. He must have someone else. Sandra stood frozen. I gave a cold, broken laugh. Sandra, this marriage is over. After that incident, everyone knew I wanted a divorce. At first, even my own. Parents didn't understand. But once I told them the truth, they fell silent. Sandra's parents never came to confront me again. They must have realized what she had done. Only Sandra held on. During her stay in the hospital, she called me again and again. I didn't answer. Not once. She called my parents next. At first, their tone was cold. But as Sandra softened her voice and kept bringing up the baby, my parents began to waver. Maybe just let it go. After all, Sandra is pregnant. Yes, Sandra is pregnant. Everyone acts like that's some kind of get-out-of-jail-free card. But to me, it was the final straw, their last weight that crushed the camel's back. I loved her. Truly I had looked forward to this child with all my heart. But what about her? She was the one who stabbed me in the back, deep enough to expose the bone. The feeling of betrayal, especially by someone you love, eats away at you constantly. I hated her. I didn't trust her anymore. So how could I possibly spend the rest of my life with her? Do I have to wait for this marriage to rot to its core before I can finally let it go? Sandra stayed in the hospital for 15 days. Makoto came once. Brought flowers and a fruit basket, claiming he just wanted to check on her. But for the first time, Sandra looked at him with cold eyes. Leave. Don't come back. Makoto paused, then forced a weak smile. What do you mean? You haven't answered my calls or messages? Can't we even be friends anymore? Does Mr. Wong still misunderstand? I can explain to him. I'm Makoto. She cut him off. Let's stop contacting each other. I wouldn't have known any of this if Makoto hadn't told me himself. He was smoking, his face full of despair. I thought I could win her over. He just showed up earlier than I did. But I've lost. I give up. She's yours now. His self-pity made me laugh. Did Sandra send you? Makoto smirked. It was her last request to me. Of course I had. To fulfill it, that's love without regrets, isn't it? Called Sandra. As soon as she picked up, she said, Alex, I'm getting discharged soon. You'll come pick me up, right? I said, abort it. What? She broke down crying. On the phone, you hate me so much that you want to kill our child? Sandra, I replied calmly, if you have this baby and one day they ask why their parents divorced, what will you tell them? Yes, I knew. Whether she was pregnant or breastfeeding, the law wouldn't let me divorce her even if I filed for it, but those phases would eventually pass. Once they did, I would divorce her. She choked out, why? I've already apologized. I've begged you in tears. What more do you want? Just for making one mistake, do I deserve a death sentence? Can't you give me one chance, Alex? Is your heart made of stone? It was the first time she ever hung up on me. She said, I won't abort the baby, and I won't divorce you. Sandra was discharged and went home. But she didn't try to contact me. Instead, her mother started calling again and again. At first, she was gentle, then angry, then ashamed. Alex, you're a man. Can't you be more forgiving? Sandra just had a male friend. Nothing even happened. Do you really have to be so heartless? Ugly words, but I had already braced myself for worse. Then I heard the news Sandra's mother had been hospitalized. What happened? A friend. He shook his head, not sure. Heard she got into a fight with Sandra's dad? Nobody knows the details. How is she now? It's awake, but crying nonstop. She's screaming that she wants to die. I exhaled. At least she was conscious, my mother asked. Aren't you going to visit? I didn't even look up from my work. No, I've already decided to part ways. There's no point in giving anyone false hope. It's strange. People really can grow up overnight. At first I thought Sandra's betrayal would destroy me, that I'd fall into unbearable pain. But as time passed, the hurt began to fade. Slowly, I started to face the truth. My marriage had failed. I didn't plan to visit Sandra's mom, but she called me herself asking to see me. I don't mean anything else, Alex. I have some things I want to say to you. Her voice was hoarse and full of sorrow. I hesitated for a long time, but in the end, I went. In just a few days, Sandra's mother looked like she'd aged 10 years. Sandra, too, she had lost so much weight, she looked like she could collapse at any moment. She was pale, fragile, and hollow. She said, Alex, thank you for coming to see my mom. I gave her a small nod, then walked into the hospital room. That's when I learned the truth. Sandra's father had cheated. To be more precise, he claimed he had found his true love and wanted a divorce. That so-called soulmate, a woman too, years younger than Sandra, he said he's never felt such a deep connection before. That they eat together, fish together, travel together, talk endlessly. He said he feels alive again. Said he's sacrificed his whole life for this family. So why can't he just live for himself now, just once? Sandra's mother trembled. As she recounted it all, her voice rising in pain, he said, "He only feels responsibility toward me and this family. It's me and this family that have held him back. How dare he? Has he ever once thought about my sacrifices? How can he erase all the years we spent together with just a few selfish words? He's the one cheating, and yet he's trying to make it sound noble. I won't let them be together. I'd rather die than let them be together. If he wants to leave me for some new woman over my dead body." Sandra's mother grabbed my hand, trembling. "Alex, you understand me, right? You get what I'm going through, don't you? Only you know what I've been through. He's driving me to the edge." And at that moment, I finally understood why she wanted to see me, why she'd said all this. The truth is, you can never truly understand this kind of pain till it happens to you. When it was Sandra's mistake, her mother brushed it off as a small conflict and blamed me for being unforgiving. But now, when she's the one being betrayed, she says it's killing her. I didn't comfort her, but I didn't scold her either. When she finished speaking, I gently pushed her hand away. Facing her hopeful, pleading eyes, I said calmly, "Rest well. I've got things to take care of. I'll be leaving now." I stepped out of the hospital room, only to find Sandra standing there. She looked at me with so much longing, like she was hoping something could still be saved. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. "Talk? Talk about what?" Even with the divorce, all I ever wanted was to resolve things, not drag them out. "I have 2 questions for you," I said. "First, if your dad hadn't asked for a divorce, but had a close female friend, would you feel for your father? Or would you feel sorry for your mother? Second, your dad's close relationship with that woman didn't just start. So why do you think he only brought up divorce now?" Sandra's expression crumbled, but I didn't stay to watch it. I turned and walked away. Sandra's father was determined. He was ready to leave with nothing, just to get the divorce. And that stunned everyone. For the longest time, Sandra lived under the labels of a loving family and a privileged upbringing. She had never truly experienced pain at home. She admired her father, leaned on him. She used to say she wanted to marry a man just like him. Her mother, calm and gentle. The kind of woman Sandra aspired to be. With her family's help, Sandra landed a comfortable job after graduating. She was now a mid-level manager. Life had been easy. The only real turmoil she ever faced was our divorce. And I understood her. She knew she was wrong, but didn't think it was that wrong. She thought simply admitting her mistake would be enough. Like it was no big deal, but her father's situation, that changed something in her. It woke her up. She didn't contact me for days, but I would still see her. Her car parked outside our building, waiting for hours, until one day she finally called out to me, sat quietly on a roadside bench. After a long silence, Sandra finally spoke. "I've thought a lot about the questions you asked me," she said. "I later asked my dad why he wanted a divorce now. And he told me, ... he said it was because of how Mom acted. That her attitude made him believe it was okay to have a close female friend. And because I had one too, he thought I wouldn't blame him. Said since I did the same, I'd understand him falling in love with someone else." Sandra's voice trembled, so did her hands. "I went to see that woman, the one my dad's in love with. I tried to convince her to leave him, but she said, her voice cracked. "That woman told me, 'Didn't you have a close male friend too? You even hesitated to have a child because of him. The only difference is, you didn't have the courage. In that sense, you should learn from your father.'" Sandra shook her head, overwhelmed. How could he do this? Oh. This time they were in love. And the day before he asked for a divorce, he still hugged my mom goodbye. She buried her face in her hands and sobbed tears full of betrayal, not just for her father, but for the very idea of love and family. But those tears stirred no pity in me, Alex. Do you hate me that much? She whispered, my hand resting. On the bench, clenched, a small thorn jabbed into my finger, sharp enough to sting. I thought back to everything that had happened. At first I was just sad, I said quietly. When I discovered you had such a close male friend, I was devastated. Then when he confessed to you, and you didn't push him away, I was confused. I thought at the very least you hadn't betrayed me, but you never cut ties, kept doing the very things that made me suffer, until the night you agreed to meet him. That's when I finally felt relieved. They say the person involved is always the last to see the truth. You didn't reject his confession. Because you didn't want him, it's because you couldn't. You broke down, felt miserable, and cried. Even knowing he had feelings for you, you didn't keep your distance. Because deep down, you couldn't let go. You agreed to drink with him because something inside you wanted to. The only thing that stopped you is probably the last shred of your moral decency, Sandra. The moment I realized you liked him, I hated you. She looked at me with pain in her eyes, but strangely I felt a sense of peace. But that's all in the past now. Hatred is too intense. It destroys everything, including yourself. It's unnecessary, Sandra. If you really feel sorry for me, then agree to the divorce. Do it decisively. Let's leave each other with a little dignity. At the end of our conversation, Sandra wiped her tears. Do you have time tomorrow? Come with me for the abortion. Just consider it the last time you'll ever be with me. Sandra and I divorced on a bright sunny morning. She asked, can we still be friends after the divorce? I shook my head. Let's not, both. Need to start over. Sandra wanted to smile. But in the end, she cried, Alex, I'm sorry. I accepted those 3 words calmly. Then I turned around and walked away without looking back. Sandra's parents were still creating scenes. I heard her father had already moved in with someone else. Her mother, on the other hand, cursed and argued every day. But none of it could change her father's determination. So she turned the blame on Sandra Sane. Sandra's actions had influenced her father. One dramatic episode after another, I didn't need to witness them myself. People told me everything. At first, I still ran into Sandra now and then, but over time, those encounters grew fewer and farther between. Her mother's chaos had affected not only her father's career, but also Sandra's job. Some people sighed, some gossiped, some just watched it unfold like a drama. Even my mom said, good thing you got out of that mess early. Otherwise, we'd be dragged into it too. What's wrong with that family? I said nothing to that. Later, I ran into Makoto once. He was in a new relationship now. Apologized to me, talked about how foolish he'd been and how he's moved on. His expression was full of relief, like he wanted to laugh off everything that had happened. It felt ridiculous. Are you really apologizing? I asked. Or just looking for some psychological comfort, Mr. Ito? I have no obligation to make you feel better. You destroyed my marriage and my family. The guilt is yours to carry, not mine. All I had to do was cut away the dead weight and move forward. I had my work. I had my family. A failed marriage might wound me for a while, but it could never break me for life. The key was knowing when to move on. Makoto was envious. If a woman made me desserts every day, I'd love her to death. Sandra's heart skipped. I make some for you? Really, of course? Sandra thought it was harmless, just making one more portion. So later, on Valentine's Day, Makoto said, being single for so long, I can't stand the smell of love. Xiaoli got 13 pieces of matcha chocolate today. I'm so jealous. It makes me want to fall in love. Without thinking, Sandra replied, do you have to be in love to receive chocolates? I'll give you some. She didn't think too deeply about it. In that moment, was she hoping Makoto wouldn't fall in love? Did Sandra like Makoto? Probably. But whether that liking had anything to do with love, Sandra hadn't considered it. What she did know was that Makoto's feelings were related to love. How could she not know? Women are most sensitive to these things, but she didn't want him to say it out loud. She couldn't give him what he wanted, and she didn't want to. She had a happy family and a loving husband. To her, Makoto could only ever be a friend. But Makoto still confessed in the end. It pained Sandra deeply. So much so that she didn't even want to see Alex, as if Alex's very presence had become an obstacle. Sandra didn't respond to Makoto. Makoto pretended he'd never said anything, and they continued as before. But things had changed. Makoto's gestures became more intimate. Sandra became hesitant about the baby. Yes, Sandra was pregnant. Just half a month after Makoto's confession, she should have been happy. She should have told Alex immediately. But she didn't. Instead, she sat in the car for an hour, tore up the diagnosis sheet, and went to meet Makoto for karaoke. Sandra was confused, thinking about everything. The baby, Alex, Makoto. She needed time to figure it out. That night, she lost control. They hugged and kissed. Makoto began unbuttoning her clothes, just short of the final step. Sandra pushed him away. "No," she said. "Not now." She hadn't made a decision yet. She was married. She was pregnant. She needed time, but she didn't know. She was already out of time, because Alex had found out. When Sandra opened the door and saw him, her heart dropped. At first, she didn't think it was that serious. Or maybe she was just lying to herself. She had just made a friend she got along with well. She hadn't cheated. She hadn't betrayed Alex. He could be angry, upset. She would apologize, and that would be it. Divorce. That felt like too much. Since Alex found out, Sandra had been in a constant state of tension, swinging between guilt and frustration. When Alex looked hurt, she felt guilty. But every time he brought up divorce, she grew irritated. She had made a mistake, but not one so big it couldn't be forgiven. Why couldn't he just forgive her once? Sandra didn't understand until her dad asked for a divorce. At the time, Sandra was in a bad place. Her mom complained with her, saying Alex was immature, too unforgiving. Wasn't a big deal. It made it sound like the end of the world. Life isn't a novel. It's not always perfect. Every family has its problems. No one's totally clean. To get through life, sometimes you have to turn a blind eye. She said it casually, over dinner. Her dad thought for a moment and asked, "So you think this isn't a big deal?" Her mom didn't flinch. "Of course not." "What's the big deal? It's just how the world is now." "That's just how the world is now." So her dad said, "I've fallen in love with someone else. Let's divorce. I'll leave with nothing." Her dad had been with that girl for 2 years. He called her a girl because she was 2 years younger than Sandra. He said it was the first time in his life he'd loved someone so much. "I've sacrificed so much for this family and my career. Can't I live for myself just once?" Listening to her dad speak about the other woman, Sandra felt like she'd been slapped in the face. It was too similar. Her dad and that girl. She and Makoto, too similar. She felt stripped bare, humiliated, ashamed, in pain, but she couldn't run because her mother fainted. If your dad hadn't brought up divorce but had a close female friend, would you sympathize with your dad? Or feel sorry for your mom? Your dad's relationship with this woman didn't start yesterday. Why do you think he mentioned divorce now? Alex's 2 quiet questions finally broke through. Sandra finally understood. Do you only feel the pain? When the knife is in your own flesh. What made her finally decide on divorce was her mother's hysterical outburst. "You're just like your father, making the same excuses for cheating. Disgusting." Alex looked at her and said coldly, "Can you stop making me sick?" He added, "At least your dad had the guts to admit he fell for someone else. You won't even admit that. Sandra, you're worse than him." Sandra trembled, tears streaming down her face. "No, it's not like that. But deep down, wasn't it? Didn't she hate her father?" She did. She never understood him. She didn't even want to speak to him. And now was Alex starting to hate her the same way? The thought terrified her. From that moment on, she finally began to regret